Hello.
Hello, long time no see. Welcome back, everybody. If you've been with us for our previous sessions, if you haven't, welcome to the Teacher Educator strand of the events that we're organising to mark World Teachers' Day. I've got some housekeeping things to say before I introduce our next facilitator. Please, this session is being recorded, so be mindful of that. We have a question and answer function, so please use that if you want to, and we hope you do. Raise any questions, give us your thoughts and opinions. Please make sure that those thoughts and opinions are respectful of other people in the audience, please, if you could. And while I'm introducing Karen, if you could give us a shout out in the question and answer box to let us know who you are and where you are from. Okay, it's a great pleasure, and it really is, to be with Karen Waterston, no E, the end, please note, who's with us today and has been with us in the British Council in many of our undertakings with teachers and teacher educators for a good long time now, I think. And Karen is going to be talking a little bit about MOOCs and about one MOOC in particular, the forthcoming MOOC that we're developing called Helping Teachers to Learn. Just before Karen says a little bit about herself, I just want to kind of put this in context, if you like. So, and the reason I'm doing that, even if you weren't with us for the first sessions, the recordings of the sessions will be available. So we've looked so far at what teacher educators do. We've looked a little bit at learning pathways and career development. We've also looked at professional development opportunity preferences, you know, how do you like to learn, that kind of thing as well. And now we're drilling down now into a particular kind of learning opportunity, and a particular kind of learning opportunity for teacher educators, which is about the MOOC. So that's a little bit of the context. Thank you so much, Karen, for being with us today. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get going?
Sure. Hi, everybody, and thanks, John. It's lovely to be here, and it's been so interesting already listening to everybody and hearing stories about different contexts and teacher educators in different parts of the world. So I am based in Spain, in Catalonia. I am from Scotland, and I've taught and trained in lots of different places, in lots of different types of classrooms. In around the world, from small to big to noisy to quiet. And currently I work at the local high school running a garden project with first-year students. So for me, what's been great, I think somebody mentioned it either in the chat or about going back into the classroom after a while. And so I've gone back into the classroom after training teachers online and face-to-face, and now it's me back in the classroom. And so I have been relearning and doing a little bit of CPD of my own on how to manage youngsters, again, in the garden, who have lots of energy.
I guess that talks to one of the first points that Shirin made this morning about career paths being very cyclical rather than linear. That's really interesting to know.
Yes, no, it's been fascinating. And I also work on developing online courses. And I also do a lot of the social media for Teaching English British Council.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you again for being with us. And thank you, the audience, for being with us as well. So we've got a question for Karen, right? But we've also got a question for you. And we'd like you to put this in the Q&A box, obviously. And the question is, very simply, have you done any professional development courses recently? Yeah. So for example, yeah, I did a 2-week course on mentoring, for example, that kind of thing. So just give us an idea of what kind of PD you've done recently, while Karen is answering this first question, which is about the MOOC that she's developing at the moment. So who is it for, first of all? I mean, what's the audience for it?
The audience is for teacher educators, aspiring teacher educators, or teachers who are helping colleagues. So it's really a varied audience, just sort of, yeah, but specifically aimed at how can me as a teacher, teacher educator, colleague, peer, help other teachers learn. Have I summarized that well?
Absolutely. No, that was
Commissioned by John.
that was so clear. No, it's brilliant. Okay, so we've got an idea of who it's for then. And I'm just waiting also just to get a little bit on professional development opportunities. So teaching English literature through the British Council in September.
That's an online course. That's it's a very interesting course, teaching English through literature.
Okay. Shakespeare and all that, yeah?
No, modern.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Doretta, that's your first name, yeah, I think so, Doretta. Thank you very much indeed. So anybody else in the audience want to tell us a little bit about any professional development opportunities they've got? Well,
because I think with this course, John, it's a 3-module course, but it can be done quickly or slowly. You know, it's because it's self-paced. And I think with professional development, you know, we often think, oh, it's a big thing, like it's long and it's complicated or it's academic and I have to read a lot. But it doesn't always have to be like that. It can be very short. You can do little tiny snippets of 5 minutes on your phone, or you can sit and spend a few hours or a day on this particular course. So it's really flexible. You know, I think professional development can be very flexible, and it can be 5 seconds or an hour or a day or a month. It's all very different. And I think that's what some of the others were talking about earlier as well.
Okay, then. So, yeah, I think that does talk to, I think, what Mai was saying about pace.
Yes.
And we talked a little bit as well, didn't we, about, I suppose, control as well. And is it, do you have to follow a particular order with it, or you could do it in different?
This particular course is 3 modules, like most British Council courses, module 1, module 2, and module 3, each divided into 3 units. And it's preferable to go 1, 2, 3. You don't have to, but it does help if you follow it. The difference is that it's on the phone. I can show you what it looks like.
Okay.
Live preview, hot off the press. Is that backwards or is it forwards?
Amazingly, it's the right way around.
Wow, amazing. So yes, you can scroll through and there's all the different sections. You can have a look at the different sections. So it's all very mobile friendly with reflections, note takings, activities, multiple choices, listenings, videos, multimedia. And so it's all designed to be done on a phone, if you happen to want to do that, because we all have our phones in our pockets. So you can be on the bus, in a car, in a park, walking somewhere, listening and having a think and a reflection. Because I know for me, often when I'm outside walking or on my bike, I often have a think about my teaching or my classes.
It's so funny, isn't it, when you think about that? I can remember saying to my mother about 10 years ago, my phone is too small to do really the very basic of tasks. No, I don't think that at all.
No.
When I get onto my laptop and I'm doing anything, I think, oh, this is too big. I can't. So, yeah, interesting, that one. Okay, so Jamoko shared that she's recently done a CPD on teaching pronunciation. So we talked about literature, teaching pronunciation. Diana's Future Learn about inclusive education, and Rosalind's talking about English language learners' effective instructional practices, the IRIS Centre. Okay, so the MOOC then. I mean, I was going to ask you the question. You know, okay, so what do you get at the end of it then in terms of what the learning outcomes are, and presumably literature, pronunciation. Inclusive education or instructional practices. Maybe the first two are not in there in any way, but there's something in there, I suppose, about you know, how do you help another person learn? Well, clearly you need to understand something around inclusiveness.
Definitely.
Also about instructional practices, you know,
Definitely.
yeah. So those two are kind of in there.
Yes.
Implicitly, I suppose. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think it addresses a lot of what the teacher educators today were talking about in terms of how do you help another teacher make a change in the classroom? How do you help another teacher learn something without, like what Charles was saying, like without sort of, telling them or dictating? It's how are you guiding somebody to think, oh, there's something going on in my classroom that I would like to change, or I've seen something. How do I implement that in maybe a difficult situation where the whole school or the authority or the ministry is not necessarily conducive to that? So this course addresses initially some of like the barriers to teacher learning. Where does that come from? Our own beliefs around teaching, how we've experienced learning. How does that affect us as a teacher, and how can we unpick that and help our colleagues and teachers? And then moving on to designing a training plan. Where do you begin? Which is even in a classroom lesson, where do you start? Learning objectives. How do you know you've met them? How do you structure a lesson? How do you select materials? And then how do you develop reflective practice in a teacher? How can you then instill in that teacher, I am ready to go away and learn something myself, and I know how to do it. I know where my gaps are, and I know where to go to find some more information.
Okay. There's in there's 3 or 4 sentences that you just delivered. There's probably about 15 hours of conversation that we could have around those. Yeah, I mean, let's just deal with it. In a way, I think there's sort of barriers to dealing with change is sort of absolutely fundamental to any kind of professional development, isn't it? So let's just deal with that for a second before we talk more generally about online learning and MOOCs, etc. So what is the advice then? What is what do people who are following the MOOC, what do they actually do then that will put them in a position? It's getting a bit complicated to talk about, isn't it? The different layers here, but that would put them in a position to be able to help a teacher understand their beliefs and therefore, in a sense, be more open and ready for learning and change. So how do you help teacher educators get those skills and understanding?
Well, it's very similar to what Maya was talking about in terms of, sort of modeling good practice and speaking from your own truth. So there's lots of examples from teachers and teacher educators of their own experiences saying, well, I believe this and therefore this. And so you can watch a video and listen to real teachers talking and real teacher educators talking, lots of scenarios. And there's research that has been broken down into manageable chunks. I think there's a comment here from May who's saying the focus on professional development is user friendly. So that's the main aim, is to present chunks of information in short, accessible ways that build in order for a teacher educator to sit through, that's a totally wrong way, to sit with their feet up and a cup of tea and do the exercises on the phone. To then reflect on, how can I do this in my own context? Okay. So there's a lot of reflection because it's online. And before, you were asking people, do they prefer learning together or alone? And as an online course, it's quite hard to learn alone in a way. So the way to do that in designing an online course is lots of reflection, note-taking, maybe go away and talk to somebody and think about something, come back, do the next part. So lots of, I think, different input and then reflection questions, multiple choice and feedback to then take on yourself.
Okay. I'd like to pick up a little bit on reflection and reflective practice in a second. Yeah, so more comments coming in about recent professional development. Rosalind, for example, talks about educational leadership. There's something that we've talked about so far, which is about, you know, I don't know whether it's an attribute or a skill or a behavior or what you would call it, but that thing about leadership. I was just interested to know what you is there anything that you would say that's in the MOOC that looks particularly at things to do with leadership? And I understand leadership to be kind of guiding people to get from one place to another, put very simply.
Exactly. I think we call it facilitation, and so in the course, and we look at the difference between teaching and training and facilitating, which Charles was talking about, that, you know, being able to listen to others, and rather than, I suppose, you know, some sort of traditional ideas of teaching is, I have the knowledge, you don't, I give it to you. Whereas in facilitation, it's, we all have the knowledge, it's around finding our way through all of that jungle of knowledge to get to what bit do I need of it, and how can I do that in the classroom. So yes, there's sections on that, using examples again, and some scenarios and teacher case studies.
Okay. Another dimension of leadership, I think, is also, you know, this thing about taking people from one place to another. It's that vision of where the other place is. You know, where do you want to get to? And I've got to say that I think it's again a key, I don't know, attribute, let's say, for teacher educators, that they've got an idea of where it is in terms of competence of the teacher, for example, that they want to get to. Is that, you know, is that in the MOOC as well? Is there the things about, you know, ideas around competence and what
Yeah,
in a sense, finished product?
Well, I get, so the course references that you'd mentioned before, the teacher continual professional development practice, the CPD framework, which maps out, the British Council has designed a sort of, it's a circle with layers. So you can sort of plot yourself, like, I can do these things, not so much this, I'm pretty good at this, I need a bit more of that, this I'm great at. And so teachers can use that to see where they are, and teacher educators can also do the same for a teacher educator framework. So if a teacher educator knows, like for me, if I'm working with a colleague here, let's say my co-teacher in the garden project, and we can have discussions saying, okay, I would like to practice, you know, my group working a little bit more, or I need to know more about the subject. Where can I go and do that? And this course helps teacher educators look at where are the gaps, and how can you fill the gaps. So it gives the vision of that, the ultimate aim and goal, which I guess is to be expert at everything. And I don't know if is that ultimately achievable, or are we always refining and refining?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think, you know, I use the word finished product facetiously. I mean, I can, you know, if the day we stop learning and having, you know, the end to a linear career or something is the day that we're 6 feet under, kind of thing, that we're carried out, you know, that it is sort of fundamental to, I think, what we do as humans, that we continue to learn and develop over time. Okay, so just this thing about reflection and reflective practice, we keep using this word all the time.
We do.
One of the things that it strikes me that we talk about, but not sufficiently, is this sort of scaffolding of reflection, of helping somebody else to reflect. You know, we kind of think, well, it's easy, just think about what you did, and if you're not happy with it, do something different.
Yes.
It's not like that, is it? Well, it's not as simple as that. I mean, in the MOOC, do you kind of deal with that sort of the scaffolding of reflection?
Yeah, a little bit, yes, especially around questions that you can ask a colleague to help them think. sort of thinking questions, reflection thinking questions. So for example, if I'm working with my co-teacher on group work and we're both trying to learn a bit more about group work, I might ask some questions after the class of how many groups did you have? Did they work well? What did you notice about this group or that group? And even questions you can think about before going into class or before trying something new. So reflection is a word that everybody knows and doesn't know at the same time. Like, what exactly does it mean? So we look a little bit at reflection and we look at how to become, we use the word self-directed learning. How do I manage my learning and be responsible and take ownership for what I want to do, not the training course or the higher authority. So it's me deciding. And so it's developing skills on how to do that.
Okay. That was thank you again, extraordinarily clear. But Fatma asks, when will the course be available? When I asked you this earlier, you said you had no idea.
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, I would think it's probably going to be available in the late autumn. I would think
the writing is almost finished.
Oh,
the writing will be finished next week. Then it's the edits and all the wraparound around resources and edits and the technical aspects.
Okay, great. And Francesca also, she uses the word including reflective practice, and of course that she's recently, she is currently doing English course on professional development on British Council. Entirely sure what that is, but it's the current course. Okay, yeah. All right, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, let us move on slightly then. I'm quite interested, as I think we all are, which is to do with writing for teachers, writing materials for teachers, versus writing materials for teacher educators, which is what you're currently doing with the MOOC that you've been talking about. And it seems like it might be quite an obvious difference, but as we've seen from some of the conversation that we've had this morning, that there's there's a great overlap between giving, just take a really straightforward example, giving an instruction in the language classroom compared to giving an instruction in the training room. And it's the same principles sort of apply. But I think one big area that is different, which we have referred to but not really gone into, which is about the difference between teaching a language, which is what English language teachers do, and supporting an adult to develop professionally. So this thing about that difference in terms of adult learning theory, in terms of okay, so what are the principles, what's the evidence base that underpins effective adult learning? Are they kind of in there somewhere? They're sort of explicit or implicit in the MOOC that you do? It's not as like, there isn't a section that says this is how children learn or in the classroom and this is how teachers learn. But there is in unit 1 and module 1 around, again, about the teacher beliefs and how we think we learn, and much more experiential and much more reflective. And in a training room, we've almost got 2 layers in a training room: the learning that is happening and the explanation of the learning that is happening. So, there are times that you're looking through a teacher lens and other times looking through a teacher educator lens. And that can sometimes be a little bit confusing. So in the course, it's mostly looking at it through a teacher educator lens. And as a teacher educator, helping teachers, always thinking, how is this helping a teacher? How is this developing? How is this supporting? Let me make some notes. And there's ideas and techniques that we use to structure a training session, for example.
But most of it often comes back to that whole idea of thinking about learning and thinking about what I'm doing, of the reflection, talking to others, thinking yourself, having an internal dialogue, and going back to look at some notes and then checking with somebody else or checking with the course. It's a very hard question, John.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you know, and it's not even midday yet in the UK.
I know.
Because what I think, and I feel this from experience, is that this transition from teacher to teacher educator. Shirin this morning was talking about the really important thing in the kind of the bedrock, if you like, of being a good teacher educator is your teaching experience. You know,
yes,
something that she believes in.
Yes.
What I've seen often, I'd say, is that it's difficult for teachers to transition into a role of a teacher educator.
Yeah.
Because they are very used to being directive.
Exactly.
In the sense that, you know, let's be honest, there are many teaching contexts around the world which are more about behavior management, about teaching.
Yeah.
So in order to kind of survive and make that into a learning environment, you know, there are many times when you've got to, you know, shoot from the hip, as we might say. And I think that's transitioning. I think that's quite difficult, isn't it?
It's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And I think we, in the course, it's addressed through this concept of facilitation versus training or teaching. You know, direct instruction versus much more, you know, sort of almost a higher level thinking. Not abstract, but, you know, teaching is, again, I have this knowledge at the end of the lesson, you can now do this thing in English, you know, talk about the past or make a hypothetical or, you know, make an appointment at the hairdresser, for example. Whereas training has that element of analysis of here's an activity or a technique, here's how you put together a training plan. Why might you do it like that? And what are the teachers going to get out of it? And where do they do that learning? So that layer of abstract thinking and analysis is, for me, what makes the difference between teaching and teacher educating.
Okay. And I think also as well that I was thinking about this the other day in relation to, we don't talk about this much either these days, ESP, English for Specific Purposes. And, you know, that in order for ESP to work, you know, you've got an English language teacher who knows nothing about, I don't know, aviation, let's say. So you have to rely on the knowledge of the learner in front of you. And I think, you know, in a way, it's a little bit similar, isn't it? That you know, that when you're dealing with adult learning, there's an enormous amount of things, many more things than kids have got.
Yes. That
you can rely on to be part of that learning process. You know, you don't need to be as directive because the teachers in front of you are already hugely successful learners because they've been to university and they've got their teaching degree.
But that can be quite intimidating as well, and terrifying when we're coming from a place where, as a teacher, we are, you know, I know more than my students for sure, and then suddenly in the training room, you know, the person who asked the really difficult question, and you're like, oh no, now what am I going to do? I don't know the answer. They're more experienced than I am. What am I doing here? Can be, I mean, I've been there as well, and totally terrifying. And making that transition to be going, I don't know all the answers. I'm here to guide you and help you and provide techniques that you can use with your teachers to guide and help them. That is a really massive shift.
Okay. It comes back a little bit. I was wondering whether we're just about to come to the end, so I was wondering whether to launch into this one. Just very quickly though, just come back what you've just said to something that we've touched on just a couple of times, which is to do with credibility.
Yes.
To do with power relations, isn't it? It's to do with what have you got to tell me that I don't know already? Kind of resistance in that sense as well. So when we're talking about professional development for teacher educators, the kind of things that they need to know and be able to do, then there's something in there, isn't there, about how does power, credibility, authority, how does that fit with the idea of guiding, of democratic kind of bottom-up approach? So there's that in a way that it isn't so much of a challenge in the language classroom. I think in some ways it's probably, I don't know, fundamental challenge, but certainly one of the big challenges in transitioning from teacher to teacher educator.
It is
credibility or authority.
Yeah.
You know, that's in a sense under the microscope, isn't it?
It is, and there's a big tension there between those, you know, transitioning from a teacher into the training room. And, you know, it's almost like I feel like you need to go through one of those double doors and have a sort of, you know, get rid of the teaching stuff and now, you know, bring in the, I'm the facilitator, I'm helping you all, I'm not the expert, I'm not going to be doing all of the talking. You might have better ideas than me. We may have to change something in the middle to go, that's a great idea, let's try that. And without knowing whether it's going to work or not. So it is exposing, a very vulnerable and exposing yourself. But when it works, it's amazing.
And that vulnerability and exposing yourself also talks, I think, to something that Shirin was saying about support networks and about well-being and resilience. Because you know, if you think about it, in the training room or the collaborative, you've got 20 teachers, and there's just you. Then. You know, it's a bit like 20 learners and just you. You know, that's different kind of challenge. But it's very important, isn't it? That when you know, the things about, you know, we're using words like intimidating, which Rosalind also picked up as well. You know, that doesn't become debilitating. It is actually a motivation to think more about what you're doing, to learn more about what you're doing, to get and develop further skills and understanding in order to feel comfortable.
Exactly. And that brings me on to a point I completely forgot to mention, that in the course, there's also a module on communities of practice. Setting up a community of practice, how you do it. And then once you have one, how do you keep people there? You know, how do you keep people in a community of practice talking? And that idea of, and I think Rosalind's mentioned it as well, around, you know, if you have a different opinion, like I've had people in the training room going, I'm not doing that, you're wrong. Or why are we doing this? And challenging me. And it is very stressful. And so to go away afterwards and talk to more experienced colleagues and say, how do you deal with those situations? Or go and watch people in other and co-teach, you know, team training. I love it. Working together in a training room is so beneficial. So having a community of practice where you can go and get support and talk to others and share ideas and even just have a laugh of things that, you know, maybe didn't go so well, or funny situations that happen.
That's right. And I think, you know, we could go on forever, couldn't we? Sorry. And it's further exacerbated, I would say, by the fact that while there's lots and lots and lots of professional development opportunities out there for teachers, lots of networks and support, people are thinking about how teachers are trained. Not really the case for teacher educators. You know, we were talking about, you know, what's the formal route, you know, where is there a union for teacher educators in your country? You know, those sorts of things. So I think that you know, there is a role that organisations like the British Council have got, but also us as individual teacher educators, to kind of set those things up then to, you
There
know.
is, because I've had so many conversations with people saying, when you become a teacher, you go on a course, you get observed, you get feedback, you get a certificate, you have a probation year, you then do some more stuff. There's lots of inset sessions and trainings, and they're all officially recognized. You get points or credits or something like that. And then, because somebody said, you know, what course did you do to become a teacher educator? I said, none. I, you know, figured it out. I read a lot. I talked to other people. So, you know, the CPD frameworks is a start to going, what, at least analyzing what does a teacher educator need, what skills in order to effectively mentor, support, and train and develop other teachers. We're getting there.
We are, yeah, that's right. Yeah, slowly, but yeah, we are, yeah.
Step by step, as they say here in Catalonia, poc a poc, step by step.
Step by step, good one. Karen, thank you so much indeed. It was really, really interesting conversation. It's a great opportunity to look at the soft underbelly, if you like, of developing materials for teacher educators with that example and focus on the MOOC, which will be out, I think, late autumn. Details of that, called Helping Teachers to Learn. Really looking forward to that. Karen, thank you so much indeed.
You're welcome, and lovely to see everybody in the comments, and thanks for joining us, everybody.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Take care, Karen. Thank you very much indeed.